Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to day 2 or episode 2 of building a custom CRM. Um, Today, we're going to be continuing the first episode. Um, we plan on making this 2 hours long, and so grab some snacks, grab a drink, grab a notepad, take some notes. We're going to be kind of taking this generic CRM thing and making it a little bit more powerful in how it's actually providing value to your business. And so, what that looks like is today we are going to have the objective of completing a few tasks. And what those tasks are going to be are um, adding work orders to the CRM. And if you don't remember, we have an app that has projects and clients um, and employees, and those projects have a project manager. They have an employee who's a developer who is a project champion. And then we have another user type inside of a project called an understudy. And so we want to be able to have um, those people to be able to clock in to this project and track their time and track what they're working on, as well as we want to send the client at the beginning of each week the previous week's hourly report. And so what that's going to look like, it's going to be an itemized list of all the work orders that were submitted that previous week. And those will include the title to the time card, as well as the amount of hours spent on it. And then we want to have a roll up at the bottom that says the sum of the total spent. And then right there in the middle, I forgot to bold it, but we want to preview work orders. And so there's a few different ways that we want to preview them. Obviously, we want an interface for the individual developers to be able to clock in and clock out of their projects to preview how much work they've done that week, and so on. We also want for the PMs, for them to see the total hourly spend on that project for the week. And so what this is useful for is if, let's say it's a retainer project, and with that project, you don't want them to exceed the total. If you want them to exceed, let's say, 10 hours a week, we have a retainer where the project is a max limit of 10 hours a week. And maybe we want to flag if we're getting close. Maybe we want to flag sending out email notification whenever we are 80% or have surpassed the weekly retainer amount. But also, we just want them to be able to see at a week how much work has been completed. That way, they can gauge if we're on pace with the project. Right here, we have Kahil, who is from Saudi. It's awesome to meet you. Welcome back. I hope it sounds like you saw the first episode, so excited to get back going where we started. Yeah, just like that. If anybody wants to share where they're from, it's always cool to see how big of a community we have and how far apart they are. Yeah, man, I made some hummus today, and I went to Dubai a few times and just fell in love with hummus made in the Arab nations, and so seeing Saudi makes me happy. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. There's been a few changes within AppSheet the past few days. Some bugs have rose up inside the community. And one thing that was working in my app in episode 1 is no longer working in episode 2, even though I've made no changes to it. And it's saying there's a mismatch of elements inside of a list. And so that's probably will be the first task we get into of troubleshooting this and seeing if we can fix it. We got Senior Loco. Hey, first time here, did not know about this channel. I use AppSheet every day for my job. I'm from Argentina, definitely will be watching previous videos. Well, it's great seeing you, Senior Loco. That's quite the fun name. And it's awesome to hear that people are using AppSheet full time. Um, just a huge supporter of this platform, AppSheet, and also been working full time with AppSheet for probably about 7.5 years, long before the whole acquisition from Google, but definitely a big supporter of what Google is doing with the product. All right, so if I go ahead and share my screen, I will show you guys this error that I'm facing. All right, and I'm also gonna, I'll leave it like that. I'll zoom in for you guys. That's way too zoomed in. Okay. So if I'm over here, we have this slice inside of projects called My Projects. And essentially, it's considered your project based off of a few different conditions and logic. Um, Essentially, a project for the different types of users inside of our employees. So inside of here, we have different roles, and those roles consist of admin, project manager, developer, and sales. And then we also have statuses. So each project has a status, and those statuses are sales, contract sent, start date booked, in progress, completed, support closed. And so what we wanted to do with the My Projects is to show that individual user what projects are active that belong to them. And so for sales, for the users who are sales, their projects are the ones that are sales or contract sent. For the people who are developers, it should be start date booked, in progress, or support. But it should only be those, because those say that they're active and in the court of a developer. But we also have to determine if the user using the app is assigned to that project. And so we have two different roles inside of each project, and we call them the understudy. So in projects right here, we have the manager, project manager, the project champion, and the understudy. Project manager is what it sounds like, a project manager, whereas a project champion and understudy, both of those are developers. So project champion is a primary developer on a project, whereas the understudy is the one who comes in and takes up the mantle of project champion if one person is sick or takes vacation and so on. We are actually using Crew Technology, our company's own structure for projects for this this webinar study. But also, anytime Camron and anytime this project champion completes a task, it requests the understudy to QA it and actually make sure that it met the requirements that were asked of from the client. And so going back into that slice that we have, it's this, My Projects. It's right here. For whatever reason, it's not allowing me to stretch this down. And that's unfortunate. So we will just work in this little window for now. But essentially, we have that logic right there. And so we have the ifs expression. And an ifs expression essentially allows you to have a conditional logic. And if that's true, it returns a value under it. If it's false, it goes down to the next one. And so it goes conditional logic, return value if true, and then the second conditional value, and then the return value if the second one is true, and then so on. As long as you continue, it will continue to run. But as soon as it finds one that's true, it spits out the value under it, and then it terminates the expression, the function. So sales, we are returning all the projects where the status is either sales or contract sent. For developers, they have to be status start date booked or in progress or support. However, not only does that have to be active in the court of a developer, but they also have to either be the understudy or the project champion of that project. Then last but not least, we have project manager. We want to make sure that the project manager is status list. So the status is in start date booked, in progress, or support. Same as a developer, other than we're checking if they are the selected project manager in that project. And so we see that we have this error right here. List has elements of mismatch types. Like I said, this worked whenever we were building out this app in our last webinar, and it's not working anymore. None of these lists look like they are an issue. However, the one that I'm that's coming to my attention is this one right here. Something within the past few weeks, it's not allowing that to be calculated as a proper list. And that's because one is understudy, a column of understudy, and one's a column of project champion. And it's not liking that those are two different columns, even though if we go into the project over here, they're both ref types, and it's a ref to employee. Sorry, a ref to employee right here. And if we go here to understudy, it's also ref to employee. So it's not really mismatched data types. It's just mismatched columns that are represented by data types. And so when we go back here, we need to think of another solution for how to ask this right here. I could do a select statement of all the users where they're we could do a select statement of all the users where their email is equal to understudy or equal to project champion. But I don't want another select statement inside this slice, because that means every single time we run this, every time this slice recalculates, we also have to run a select statement. And we have to run that select statement for every single project if they're a developer. And I just don't want to slow down the app like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use an expression much more like this. User email is equal to project manager instead of user email is in this list of these two roles. And so we're going to go ahead and copy this one. And we're going to say that, and we're going to do this with understudy, and this with project champion. Now we can get rid of this row. Let's see. Now we can get rid of this row. Okay, and this isn't quite it, because right now it's requiring that it's the status, and they're the understudy, and the project champion. In the previous episode, we made it where the understudy is incapable of also being the project champion, and the project champion is incapable of being the understudy. And so we want it to be either of these to be true. And so within this and statement, we see this and is from here to here. We want to instead have an or right here. So let's wrap that in parentheses. I selected the text I wanted to wrap, and then I did open parentheses, and it wrapped it. And I want an or statement. And so now this or is inside of this and. So what this is essentially saying is if they are a developer, we want to include the projects where their status is either start date, booked, in progress, or support, and they have to be either or they have to be either understudy of the project or they have to be project champion of that project. And then we close the or right there. So let's go ahead and save this, and we should have an app again that will load. Perfect. And so if you did not catch episode 1 and episode 2 is your first time seeing this app, this is the app we have. And so let's go ahead and give a quick demo of it. We have my projects, and I'm a developer. And so I only have this one project right here. It's the client Google, and the name is Google AdSense project. And as we can see right here, I am the understudy. If we go to clients, we see a list of all the clients, and each client is assigned to one of 2 teams. So we saw right here that the team for this one is async. That is the team of my team within Crew Technologies. And so right here are the projects for async. Here are the projects for the Q team. So let's go to United Airlines right here and click edit. And then let's set, I am viewing the clients, and I need to go to their projects. They don't have a project. So if I go and add a project, and we'll say flight on boarding app. I am typing all over the place. Flight onboarding app, and let's say this is in status of in progress. It autofills Joshua L as the project manager of this project because it's assigned to async, and that is async's project manager. And so let's go ahead and make me Camron L the project study, the project champion, and Wes the understudy. So we hit save. And so now if I go back to here, we can see that this is under my projects. Well, if we were to go back, go to United Airlines, go to this project, and change me to no longer be the project champion, say Connor is the project champion, hit save, that no longer shows up inside of my projects because I'm not assigned to it. Okay, and then we have the teams right here. And so we see that there's async team and Q team. Async team derives of Camron L, Joshua L, Will O, Wes A, Connor S. And then Q team, we have Matt P. We have Landon Q, Alyssa S, Justin L, and Clark J. All right. And so now that is really what we have with our app so far. And what we want to do is we want to get back into these tasks right here, starting off with creating work orders. And so again, what work orders are not only is this my project, but these projects are the ones that I'm doing work on. And so I need to record that work somehow. Sorry, let me share my screen again. So I'm going to allow the user, I'm going to create a way for the user to actually add new work orders to this project. And so if we go back to the app right here, and we go to the app data. So let's click here, view app data source. And then let's zoom in a lot for you guys. And then we want to create a new sheet, and we want this called work orders. And keeping my schema naming conventions of underscores and lowercase called snake case. And I'm going to keep the IDs as ID and a reference as table name underscore ID. And so a work order should be ID. A work order has a reference to a client. So we type in client underscore ID. Also has a reference to the project. We type in project underscore ID. And then we want a title for it. This is going to be sent over to the client, explaining what work was done with this time of this work order. But before that, we also want to include who is the employee who did it. So we'll say employee underscore ID. So we have the title. Let's go ahead and make that lowercase. So title. And then we will do the total time. And then let's do start time. And let's do end time. So, and then we'll say stats. Okay. So essentially, we have an ID, a unique identifier for this record. We have a reference to the client that this work order is for and the project that this is for. Whenever they select client, we want to limit the options of projects afterwards. Employee will be based off of who is currently creating the task. Other than project managers will be able to choose developers from their team and assign them cards. So they can request me completing a task. A title, a short title is saying what the task is. Total time is the elapsed amount of hours, decimals, that has passed. And so right here, we can do start time and end time. And so this is them clocking in and clocking out. And then let's go ahead and, so they do the start time and end time. We subtract the end time, the start time from the end time, and it gives us the elapsed time. We hit save that time and it adds it to total time. And then it clears these two where they can clock in and out again. And then status right here. That is saying if they're currently clocked in or if they're currently clocked out. I think this is probably better used. No, I think it'll be good as a static column. I was going to say it should be a virtual column. Right here, you have a question, Senor Loco. Yeah, feel free to ask questions if it's regarding this or if it's regarding something else. I can reorder spreadsheet columns, but virtual columns always appear last in filters, even if I reorder in table view. How can I make virtual columns appear in the desired order in filters? Do you mean the filter on the top right? Feel free to respond quickly if you want to continue this conversation. Are you talking about the filters right here? You want to control the order of these filter columns? Okay. I actually have not ever tried to reorder those. One thing that you can consider is whenever you are inside of a slice, you're able to reorder these columns like this, even though, and what that will allow you to do is it will allow you to put the virtual columns above the static columns. And so let's go ahead and hit save, and let's give this a test to see live if this works. So right now I'm on my projects, which is a slice. And so, okay, so it sounds like you're saying it does not work. But let's go ahead and try it just to see for myself. So right here, if I resync, it goes ID, client ID, name. And then if we go in here and we order the slice, let's put ID at the end and let's put name at the beginning. Let's hit save. Then go back here, give it a resync. Then open up filter, ID, client name, name. Yep. That's no fun. I'm sorry. I think that is something that should work. That's dumb. All right, let's go ahead and go back into this. And so we created this table. I like to go ahead and make these bold. And we can go into the data right here and add work order. For sure, senior logo. It's one of those things where it's like you test it out and see it, and you're like, man, they should have done that. That would have made sense. All right. So we just added this table work orders, and we want to go ahead and set up the label to be title. We want to hide the ID because nobody wants to look at a uniquely generated 8-digit string, 8-character string. Client, we want that to be a ref, and we want a ref to the client table. You would think that it would auto-select that reference. Okay, employee will be a reference to the employees table. Okay, title is going to be a text. That's good. I think it's better than doing a long text because these are going to be a table inside of a PDF. Total time is going to be a decimal. And let's see. Decimal looks good. I only want this to go 2 decimal points. No, numeric digits. That's something different. Decimal digits too. Let's say this can only go up to 5. Total time, that's good. Start time, end time. Perfect. Status is going to be an enum. And it should be it should be not inactive. Locked in. And then completed. Okay. And so inactive, I should say not, I'll say not clocked in. I'm just like going back and forth. I want this to be clocked out. And I want this right here to be not started. So whenever you create a card, it starts off as not started. But when you clock in, it clocks you in. Then when you clock out, it sets status to clocked out. And then you can clock in again and clock out again as many times as you want. But whenever you're done with it, maybe you just don't want to see it anymore or whatever, you can go ahead and complete it, and it will hide it from your dashboard that we'll build. Let's hit done and hit save. Got a little green warning saying that because I've hid this, it is no longer an option to be searchable. I'm just going to go through all these and make sure that the key is hidden. So team, we want the key hidden. Perfect. Project, we want the key hidden. Employees, the key is actually email, so we do want to show that. Client note, hidden. Client contact is hidden, and client ID is hidden. All right, let's hit save. Okay, so we built out this new thing called work orders, and we have no way of actually using them. And so what I want to do is I want to build out a view that's a dashboard. And so we'll go ahead and do a new primary view, and we'll call this dashboard. And then we'll go ahead and add a display icon. Just like that. And then we'll set this to a dashboard. And then we'll go ahead and create another view. And we will call this my work order. Call this dashboard work orders. I can't type at all. Okay, so we got dashboard work orders, and these are going to be work orders, but I'm going to add a slice. That slice is going to be dashboard work orders, but let's go ahead and make this underscores in lowercase. Okay, and then the expression we want to use is a dynamic one. So let's go ahead and type in that we want the work orders to be where the employee ID is equal to user email. So is equal to the user who is logged into the app, who's previewing, and that this is running for. So we also want this to be more than one condition. So we want it to be an and, all of them to be true. And we want it to be for this user. We also want it to be status not complete. It's not completed. I don't know what I typed in, if it's complete or completed, but for completed, I think. And then we also want it to be where the date of today, we want the week num. Oops. We want the week num to be equal to the week num of whenever it was created. So is week num, okay, that is the name of the function, I think. We want that to be equal to the week num of the work orders date. So I added date, right? So I go here and there's no date. Let's go ahead and add a date. So we'll type in date. And it's not regenerated it yet, so this is not going to like this expression until we actually regenerate the work order table and add the date column into it. But we want the date of the work order and its week number. So if it's January 1st, it's going to be week num 1. But if it's December 30th, it's going to be week num 52. And so we want to confirm that the week num of the date that this is for is the same week num of today. So regardless if this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, all the way to Saturday, that it's showing all the ones for that week. However, if it's January 1st and it's week number 1, it's going to not only show me all the work orders from this year of week number 1, but it's also going to show me the work orders of next year's or the previous year's week ones. And so we don't want that. We want to also say the year of today is equal to the year of the date. All right. And so it's not recognizing the date because we haven't regenerated yet. But if we go back here and we go to work orders and hit regenerate, we shouldn't see any errors. Let's see. All right. So we go here, go to dashboard work orders, go in here, and we got that check mark. So we are only showing the work orders where the employee ID is equal to user email, where the status is not equal to completed, the week num, the week of today is equal to the week that the date was created, the work order was created, and the year is equal to, the current year is equal to the year that the work order was created. Awesome, let's hit save. Let's go back to work order, and let's make sure that date is autofilling with today. So we want this to be initial value of today, which that is correct. And then we have these autofilling as time now, and we're not assuming that they're clocking in as soon as we create it, and we're especially not assuming they're clocking out. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and do a calculation of what the start time is after you subtract it from the end time, creating the duration of time between the end time and the start time. And so what we want to do with this is we want to confirm that if we go to data validity, and we want to make sure that the end time is in fact greater than the start time. Otherwise, we'll start doing negative numbers, and we don't want that. We don't want negative time worked on time cards. Okay, and so let's go ahead and do a virtual column, and we'll say current time worked. Okay, so the current time worked is the end time subtracted by the start time. But this shows a crazy duration whenever this is blank or when this is blank. So if we ran it, it would be some crazy duration that we don't want it to be. And so we are going to say if the start date is blank, or, so let's wrap that in, or, so if start date is blank, or if end date is blank, start date or end date is blank, we want to return 0.0 hours. But if both those aren't blank, then what we want to do is we want to return this. But also, if we go to examples and we look up the columns and we go down to duration, if there is one. No, there's no duration column. Right now, this is giving us duration. And this right here is the decimal of hours that's been worked. And so we need these to be the same data type. And so we need to convert this into hours. And so if we go to time, and I believe it's been a while, I believe there's an hours. Hour. So let's type this in. Let's hope it returns a decimal. Oh, total hours. There we go. That returns a decimal. Okay, so we type in total hours. And then we wrap this into the function. And so this will return a decimal. If I spell it right, total hours with an S. This will return a decimal of how many hours are between the end date and end time and start time. So let's go ahead and hit save, hit done, hit save. So we have the full data structure finished for work orders, at least where we can start working on adding line items. So what we want to do next is we want to create the view that they actually create them from. And so let's go ahead and create a we have dashboard work orders right there. Let's make that a table. And we'll group them by project. And we will do an aggregate of their total hours. So the sum of total hours. And then what we want to show is we want we don't need client, we don't need project because that's what they're grouped by. But we don't need employee ID because these are all hours. Total time can go at the end. We don't need start time, we don't need end time, we don't need status, we don't need date, current time worked, we don't need that. So we just want these two. So now, if we go ahead and keep that as is, we go to the dashboard and add that as a view. So we called it dashboard work orders. And we want the okay, that's cool. That's the slice. So we hit save. Then we want to go back over here into the app and test this out. So we got our dashboard. And if we go ahead and add a work order, we can say this is for United Airlines project. I'm not on that project anymore. So this is a project for Google. And this is the Google AdSense. Employee ID is Camron Lupton. Title is we want to do update or create SQL database for app. So we don't want to fill this in right now. We don't want to fill this in. So this stuff will be all things that we don't fill out on this view. But status will start off automatically as not started, and it's actually typed in wrong. So we will ignore that for now, and we don't need to show this, and we don't need to show this. So that gives us little few pointers to work on in between. But okay, so we have this card right here, and we should be able to clock in and clock out of them. But let's go ahead and create another view. So we'll go ahead and duplicate this one. And we'll call this one work order detail. So this is going to be a detail view of your work order. And so let's go ahead and select detail view. And we want a header column to be the project and the clients. And then we want the title to be at the top. And so we'll do column order. Let's go ahead and add everything we need. Let's do all this stuff, and then we can reduce what we don't want. So current time worked. I don't think we need that right now. Status, I don't think we need that. End time, start time, end time. I think that's something we can keep for now. Date, I don't think that needs to belong right here. Employee ID, we know it's ours. Project ID, it has it up top. Client ID, it has it up top. Total time, I think that's valuable. And then title, that's definitely valuable. And then we'll go over here to quick edits, and we'll make sure that the title's editable, and the start time, and the end time. This is useful if you like forget to clock out 2 minutes later, and so you got to set back the thing after you've already clocked out. Okay, so we have the start time and the end time and the title of the card. Now we want to go ahead and create actions that will allow you to clock in or clock out of the app, and then actually submit that time once you have completed it. So we need 3 actions: so clock in, clock out, submit time. And then in the future, we'll also add a complete work order. So let's go ahead and go to work order actions, add a new one, and we're going to call this one clock in And what we want to do is we want to set values inside this one. We want to set the start time to now. And we also want the status to be locked in. Then we can go ahead and duplicate this. Okay, so we only want this to be an option whenever they are not clocked in. So let's go ahead and go to behave to display, and let's add a clock. Let's make this a filled in clock. Okay, and we only want this to show up if the status is not equal to clocked in. Sorry. And then we can go ahead and duplicate this. And this is going to be clock out. And we want to clock out when? Well, first, what would we do whenever we want to clock out? We want to change the status to clocked out. And then we want to set the end time as now. Hit save. Is there anything we want to add? So we have status already. We don't want to change any of this stuff. We don't want to change the date, title, none of that stuff. So let's go ahead and keep that as is. And let's go ahead and represent this one with a clock that's filled out, not filled out. So like that, it's empty. And we can do the behavior. And we want this to only be whenever they are clocked in. All right, hit save. And then we want another one that we want to call this one submit time. All right. And we don't want this. And all we want to do with this one is we want the title, not the title, sorry, the total time to take the total time that it is before this action. And then we want to add the amount of time, what did we call it? Current time worked. And so it's adding the current time worked to that. And then we want to clear the start time and the end time. So we'll just go ahead and do this like that. All I'm doing is quotation marks with nothing inside of it. Let's hit save. And we want this to only show whenever the status is equal to locked out. And let's also quickly fix that status right here. We want this to be not started. And we also want this to be the initial value. So if we scroll down here to auto compute, go to initial value, let's go in there, let's wrap it in parentheses, quotation marks, hit save, done, save. And now we got some testing to do. Oh, one last thing, we want to add the dashboard. We want to add the detail view. So we called it this right here. We want this to be tall. We want this one to be large. And then we want to use interactive mode. And I'll show you what that does. So now if we go in here and we give it a little resync, when I click this, it will populate this detail view on the right. That's what interactive mode does. And so we can clock into AdSense. And let's say I just click this button now. Let's say I clicked it at 3 o'clock. And then I want to clock out. There we go. We see a bug. Clock in is showing whenever it's clocked out. And we only want clock in to be available, I guess, when it's not started. Yeah, we'll set it back to not started after we submit the time. But we want to submit the time. And now we have this right here. We have 0.84 hours so far. That is kind of ugly. We want to fix that. But we also see this stuff like submitted time. We could do that a million times. It's not going away. And we want those to go away. We only want one of those to show up at a time. And so we have to be a little bit more specific on some of these. And so first, action 1, under work orders, clock in. We only want that whenever status is clocked in or clock. We only want it when it's not started. Okay. And then we only want this, submit time. We only want that whenever it's clocked out, but we also want to make sure that we set the status back to not started. Really, the whole not started thing is not really going to be visible anywhere. It's just to control these buttons. Then we also want something to clear the time if it was a mistake or something. So we'll say clear time. And that is just going to set the status back to not started. And it's going to set the start time and end time both to blank. Hit save. And so clear, we can come up with a better icon than that. So let's see clock. Is there any good clocks that have an X or anything? Okay. Usually if you type in times, it has the best thing. And so we'll do this one. That looks like a clock kind of. All right. We want this to only show up whenever we want it to show up when the start time or the end time is blank. It's not blank. All right, wrap the send and or function. Okay. And then we want to hit save. There's also that one thing that I did. I think I was just clicking around kind of total time. We don't want that to be, we want that to just be clear. And then that we can actually hide. So total time, let's go ahead and hide it. Okay. Then we want to have a display time. Display time. And we want this to be the total time. And we want to do and we can do hours submitted. Then we want the submitted amount of time. And then we want to go ahead and we want to do an ampersand. And we'll say if is not blank. So if the current time worked is not blank, we want to say something similar. So we want to take this and we want to say pending. And that's the amount of time that's pending. And we want to take the current time worked, add that to pending hours. And then we also want to do a line break. And so let's go ahead and do this and do a line break and ampersand. Okay, so this line break that's right here is only going to work if we make this a long text instead of text. But also, if it's not currently pending, we want to go ahead and just do, we want to concatenate nothing with it. And so let's go ahead and hit save. Let's make sure that this is a long text. Hit done, hit save. And then we can go ahead and add this to the top of the view. So let's go to dashboard, click on here, click on this, go to here, and we want to add this to the top display name. Then hit save. All right. So now if we go ahead and resync this, I'm going to shut my door. My dog let herself in. Sorry about that. All right, so now we have this pending time. I don't like the fact that you can actually see that title. And also one thing I didn't think of is that will say 0 if it's blank. So it's never really going to be blank. So what we really want to do is say if it's greater than 0, not if it's blank. So let's do those two things. So display time, we'll go ahead and make the display name just a space. What that's going to do is it's going to make it look like there's no display name. It's going to be nice and clean. And then next we want to go into the display name again, go to the formula, and instead of saying is.blank, we want to make sure that it is actually greater than 0. Let's hit save. And there we go. We can see that that collapsed a little bit. Let's hit save. We are 58 minutes in, which is the halfway point. If you have any questions, let me know. We'd love to answer some. But let's go ahead and continue. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through all these and make sure that they have names better than these snake case right here. And like end time, I don't need that to show up unless I don't need the end time to show up unless start time is filled out. So let's hit clear. We also want, whenever they hit clock in, we also want that to make sure that the end time is empty. So we're kind of jumping around, but if we go to clock in, we want to make sure that end time is not filled in. So let's do that. And then end time, let's say that this should not show up unless should only show up if the start time is not blank. Okay, I'm doing this in the wrong place. End time should only show. So if start time is not blank, or wrap it in the or if the end time is not blank. Wait, so let's actually do and. So if this is, sorry, I'm going crazy. Either if this is not blank, the start time, or if the end time is not blank, meaning for some reason it's filled out. We don't want to hide it. So if either of them are filled out, we want to show the end time. Let's go. What is it not like? Oh, I didn't close out the parentheses. Hit save. Hit done. Hit save. I like display name above title right there. It looks better. If we clock in and then we clear time, it clears it. But we clock in and then clock out. Let's set this to 3:45 and let's hit. So that will now show us how much pending time we have to submit. And then as soon as we hit submit time, we're now at 1.11. Stefan, do you have a favorite naming convention for hidden actions? I don't know what entirely you mean by that. Like, do I add a string of text in it if I know it's going to be a hidden action? Most of the time that I do a hidden action, it's usually because it. So if I go in here, if it's a grouped action, I'll usually say something along the lines of clock in, and then I'll say grouped, like that. And then the actual sub actions within it will be something like this. I'll say step 1 dash and say set status. And then the step 2 would say something along the lines of step 2 set time. And then step 3 would be like trigger bot. And this just kind of, for me, shows me that this action belongs to the action of clocked in group. I don't know how to spell groups. I think, is it 2 P's or 1 P? I never know until I check this. It's 1 P. You like to add a caret icon to have hidden. Okay, nice. But I also will do like the action name of like save or update user activity, let's say, and then I'll do save action. If it's I'll say a form save. That's what I usually say. So if it's like a form save, if it's hidden because it's a form save, I usually do like that. And then if I'll say like navigation or gallery icon action and stuff like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and delete that. Hit save. For sure, Stefan. All right, so we have this dashboard up right here. Let's go ahead and preview it. And so you're able to click in here and you're able to clock in. Let's actually clear it first. You can clock in. Start time is right there. And then clock out. It adds a time. Let's pretend like we clocked in at 55 after, or 3:55. And so it says pending is 0.16 hours. And so would you like to submit that? Let's do it. And then there we go. Now it's not clearing the end time. And so I want to figure out why that is. It should do it whenever we submit time. So let's go to submit time action. And I have start time and start time selected. And so start time and end time. Easy bug. Let's go here and give it a little resync or reload. Clock in. let's make this 2:32 or 3:23. Clock out and hit submit time, and it clears it. All right, that's working how it's supposed to. And we can see that it's growing right there. What I want to do is I want to add an icon that essentially allows me to add another work order for this client in this project. So I'm going to make the icon right here, and I'm going to make an icon right here to the left. And those will be an inline action. And so let's go ahead and knock that out. We'll say work order. We'll say add new work order. And we'll say this one is on the detail view. So we'll make sure it's prominent. And we want the display to be an add. Don't know what add icon I want to use. Don't think it matters too much. That looks like it's trying to be the clock though. I'll just do a simple plus sign. Let's type in plus right there. All right, and we want the display name to be add work order. Let's do create. Okay, and so we want to go ahead and link to view. So we want to go to another view within this app. And then we want to do link to form. And I don't know the name of the form that we use. And so let's go ahead and click this. Sorry. Edit. Okay, it doesn't say that there's a form name for it. And so we need to go ahead and create a form. Let's create a new form. We'll say this new view is WO form. All right, it's a ref. And all we really need for this is first name. No, what am I saying? This is the wrong table. So we want the views to be manual, and we want the client ID, the project ID, the employee ID, the date, and the title, and we can remove everything after that. All right, so let's hit save. We're gonna have a error because we did not fill out that link to form, but we have the view that we want to use now at least. So let's go ahead and copy that text. So the link to form, what that action does is it takes you to a form view, and it auto-populates columns within that form. And so things that we can do to auto-populate is we can say for the client, let's see, for client ID, we want that to be the client ID of this work order. All right. And for the project ID, take a wild guess what we want that to be. We want that to be the project ID of this work order. And we want the employee ID. We want that to be employee ID of this new one. All right, then we can hit save. And then we can hit save again. And let's go ahead and clean up these display names. So I'm gonna actually zoom out I'll trust that you guys can live with a little bit less Zoom right now. Client, and then project. And we'll say employee. Date. Title. That's hidden, so we don't really need anything for it. And right here, we'll say start time. Right here, we'll say end time. Status is also going to be hidden. Current time worked can be hidden. And display name, we have the little space. So let's hit save. And then we can go in here and go here and do a little resync. All right, so now we can create a work order based off this one. And we can see that it already has client, the project, and the employee already filled out with the date already being now. And so all you have to do is fill out the task. And so you can say generate AppSheet app based off of the SQL database. All right, hit save. Then now I can start clocking into that one. Next, what we want to do is we want to create that same action right here so that even if I'm on another project for a different team, I can click on it over here as well. And so let's go ahead and copy the same action. Let's zoom back in for you guys. So we go to here and we want to duplicate this. And instead of it being prominent, we want it to be inline. With the inline action, you have to select which column you're attaching that inline action to. We actually want to create a virtual column, that way you can place it anywhere. And so let's go ahead and do work order virtual column. And I like to call this inline action. And I like it just to be a blank text. I do a space. I also do not want it to ever show its name of inline action. So let's just add a space to this as the display name. And so now what we can do is we can go to that action and we can make this one called inline. And the column we want to select is inline action. And then on this little view over here, this one right here, we want to go in there. And before we do the title, we want to go ahead and add inline action and add right there. So now there's that little plus button right there. And so that's not very useful whenever you already are clicked in to something like this, like it's already right here. But if you have 15 other projects, it's really nice to not have to click into it, then go across. Just be able to quickly knock it out like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and test this out by clocking into another project. And so if we go ahead and hit add, client is going to be United Airlines, project is going to be flight onboarding app, employees can be Camron. All this stuff can be auto-filled for the most part. Title will be onboarding, or not onboarding, set up the Google Workspace environment. environment. All right, hit save. And so let's go ahead and clock out of this one and submit that time. And so now we can see how much time we've worked on this project and on this project. It's pretty nice. Okay, so we just faced something that is a little bit of an issue. If I were in this project right here, and I would have no idea that I'm currently clocked into this project and it's running hours for the company on that project. And so I want a way to show the user that this is an active time card, even when I'm not clicked into it. Because like right now, we can see that it says clocked out. Even though it's a very slight indicator, we want to bring more emphasis to it being clocked in. So what we use internally is a little lightning bolt, and we want to go ahead and add a format rule, and we'll say active work order. And so an active work order is where the, are we on the right thing? We're on employee. Active work order, where it is status is equal to locked in. But we also want it to be whenever it's clocked out, but they haven't yet submitted it. So we'll do this clocked in or clocked out. So we need to make this a list, and we need to check if this status is inside of this list. So we use the in function. Hit save. And then we want to use a lightning bolt, just like that. And we will use yellow. Hit save. Yellow should look good on the dark mode. Let's clock in. And we're not applying that to anywhere. So let's go ahead and select what it's affecting. So let's go ahead and make it affect the title. Right there. So now the users in the app can easily see which card they're clocked into, even though they have another card that's currently active. All right. So I kind of don't like how it just shows the client right there. I wish it showed, I mean, just the project. I wish it showed client then project. And so I'm going to go ahead and go in here. And I don't want, so like whenever I'm in here, creating a work order, I don't want it to say Google AdSense. I want it to only show up right here. And so currently I'm sorting by the project, and it's showing the project's label, but I don't want to change what this says without adjusting what the label is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a virtual column inside of work orders that will be called group by. And I want this to be the client ID. And then we want the label of the client, which is the name, I believe. Yes. And we want a space dash. Let's do this. Let's do a colon space and then add the project name. All right, and then we want the name of the project. I am typing all over the place. All right, so let's hit save, hit done. And then on this view right here, we want to go ahead, instead of grouping by the project ID, we want to group by the group by. So now if we hit save, we see Google colon project name. So client colon project name. And that makes it a little bit easier for the user to be able to see what is going on. And so we can also go ahead and create a work order for this Google project, or we can go ahead and create a work order for this United Airlines one. Okay, so I think that we have a fairly comprehensive app when it comes to creating work orders. Next on our agenda was that we wanted to be able to preview work orders, and we want to create a dashboard to clock in and out and create work orders. We have completed that. And now we want to create a view to all work completed for a client by week. And so we want an action button over here where they can preview the hours that have been worked for that week. So for the current user, we can see the hours that we worked for that week because that's this number right here. However, for a project manager, where their interest is more on their team's accumulative work completed on that week, they want a different way to see it. And so let's go ahead and create a new view. And we'll call this, we'll make this reference view, and we will make this a table, and we'll say completed work. All right, these are going to be work orders. And then we want to group them by the week, but we don't have week. And so what we want to do is we want to do year colon space week number. And so we need to create the other way that we need to group by that. And so we'll go create another virtual column, and we'll call this group by week. And so if we were to group by week and we were solely to just do the week num, so if we were to do dates, let's wrap that, and we did week num, we'd run into that same issue that we talked about earlier of January, the first week this year would be grouped in with the first week of last year. And so we aren't really sure if we want that. And so we want week num, and then we'll say week that, and let's do all this action. And then we also want to do something that says essentially the year. So year, if we were to do week first, the alphabetical stuff would, when you make it alphabetical, it would put the year up first above the week, and it would just get messy. So we are doing the year first. So if we do that, and then do an ampersand, and we want to do space, bar, space, make that look clean. And so if we test this for all these week work orders, it will be 2024 week 34. Sounds good. Let's hit save. Let's hit done. Let's hit save. Oh, let's go back to what we were doing. Completed work. We want to group that by the group by week. And then we want to group that by the group by year, if that makes sense. And so we go back here. We do this. We say group by year. And we'll just say year concatenate that with the year of the date. So let's go to this one, and let's type in week all caps like the other one. And then we can go back to that view, completed work, and the second group by will be the group by year. And we don't care to see those display names. Or we could just say year. And then for this one right here, for the other one, we can just say week. Doesn't hurt me to see some display names every once in a while. Hit save, hit done, hit save. So this is not going to be the most beautiful breakdown right now. So recap what we've been working on. We've been working on this view right here where we can click on work orders, completed work orders, and we can click into, let's see, these are backwards. So we have the year, and then you click into the year, and then it's separated by week. What we want to do is we want to also aggregate by the hours. But it's not allowing me to aggregate. Let's see this. I want to aggregate by the total time, but it won't let me do that. So let's see if we group by something else. We group by date. Why is it not letting me aggregate by anything? So that's very interesting. We're going to go ahead and do group by week and then by year. I think that actually might be mixed up. Yeah. Let's hit save. I'm not sure why it won't let me aggregate by total time. Oh, is it because total time is hidden? Maybe. Let's unhide total time. So now, if we go back into the view and check out here, now it's showing. Okay, that helps a ton. Okay. All right, so let's show real quickly what we've been working on. We have the my work orders, and we actually need to create a view to go there. So let's go ahead and add a new action. And we'll say we want this to be inside of work orders. And we want to say go view week hours. And they can be a little filter icon or filter. And we can say this. And we want to go to another view within this app. And I believe we called it, so we want to do link to filtered view. And we want to go to completed work orders, I believe it's called. Completed work orders. And I'll copy this and paste it into the actual name if it doesn't work. And we want to check if the project is equal to the project that we're checking this from. So, oops. Underscore this row takes us back to the project that we're working in instead of the project that's filtering from. And we want to say project ID. All right, so let's hit save. And then if we go back to that view, we want to confirm, okay, it's completed work. We'll change it to that. And so this should show up whenever we click into one of these. You should see the action right here. Curious why we are not seeing it. It might just because it hasn't synced yet. View week hours, prominent, behavior is true. Okay, I'll trust that it's just going to work. Let me hit save. And then let's preview the app. And we're right here, and we go to this project, and we check out the hours for that project. And we see that for year 2024, we have this many hours done, and in week 34, we have this many hours completed. Let's go ahead and create a work order that is for a long time ago and see how that does. So let's go back into here. Let's create a new work order. And let's keep it for that for now and say onboard client. So a long time ago, we had this project where we onboarded the client and we started that at 11 a.m. and we clocked out at 45. And so let's hit submit time. So we worked 4 hours and 4.79 hours back then, but we need to go ahead and change the time. So let's say this was last year, December 30th of last year. Let's hit save. So now when we go to here, it's gone because it's no longer within this week. When we go in here, we see 2023, we completed 4 hours and 79. So we can click here and it filters it. And we can see how many hours we worked not only in that year, but how many hours we worked in that week. And then we can also see right here how many we did in 24 and how much we did in week 34 of 2024. Let's go ahead and do a few more line items for previous weeks. And so let's go into my dashboard and create a new one. And let's make it for this week and just say test. And then for test, we'll go ahead and clock in for a few hours, clock out, submit. We'll do another test. And that other test will be, we'll call it lorem ipsum, this filler text. Hit save, submit, clear time. Okay, now we want to clock in for this one and add a few hours, maybe a lot of hours. Clock out, and 15 hours, submit time. Okay, and so now if we go ahead and edit these to be, let's make this a week ago, hit save. Let's make test. Let's just come up with a better name. Build out, build out an ERD. And then we can set this back to be from 3 weeks ago. Hit save. So now, whenever we go to this project's filtered views, we see that 2024 has 19 hours, 2023 has 4 hours, and that these weeks right here, if we filter by 2024, we see Week 32 has 2.7. Week 33 has 15.2, and week 34 has 2.202. What I don't like about this is that they are ascending as they go down instead of descending as they go down. And so what I want to do is I want to reverse those group bys. And so if we go ahead and go to the view, go to completed work orders right here, and we can make these descending instead. And so what this will do is it's not, there we go. This is going to make it where the newest one is on top. So 2024 will be at the top and 2023 will be on the bottom, as we can see right here, as well as the most current week will be right here. And when it's not filtered, so we click all, we see that 2023 is down here, whereas previously it'd be up top. All right. So we have that going right there, and our people would be able to check out right here. What we want to do now is we want to clean up which actions are showing up in here, because we don't really care to show, let's say, client and project over and over and over. We also don't need to create a work order from here. That's not really the intent of this. But also a really cool thing you could do with it, we don't need to show start time, all that stuff. So let's go ahead and click this filter. Now we can go to employee, and you can filter by which employee the work is done by. So let's go ahead and go in here and edit this and make this Joshua's card. Hit save. So it's Joshua, Ellen here, and Camron. So let's say I only want to see what Camron has done this week. So I can go to employee and say Joshua only, hit done. And now I can see that Joshua has only worked on this project 0 hours. So let's clock in, let's get him some time. Now let's clock out. It's not going to be really any time at all. Let's see if it even added 0.1. So it didn't add 0.1 even, but he has 0 hours worked. But Camron over here, let's go ahead and make Joshua one of these cards actually have time. So let's edit this and make this one Joshua. Let's hit this. And then so Camron has done this much work in 2024 and 2023. And then if we switch it over to Joshua, like that, hit done. And we can see these two cards have been completed by Joshua. Makes it super easy to filter. You can filter by title, not really that useful because these titles are just all individually typed. Client project, those aren't really necessary because honestly, everybody in here is the same client and project. Employee, it's cool. Date is pretty cool, but that's kind of the whole point of these groups is to ultimately get down to the date. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean up this view, and then we're going to close out this this webinar unless we have any questions. So if anybody has any questions while I clean this up, feel free to ask. I would love to answer some questions. In the next webinar, we will be talking about weekly client updates, and what that's going to look like is every single Monday, we're going to send out all the clients a list of all of their work orders that were completed in the week before, as well as the timestamps of how long they were worked for, and then a roll up of the total sum of all the hours completed. So let's go ahead and check this out. Going back to here, and we want to clean up this view to have a little bit more relevant information. So title, that's good to see. Inline action, we don't need them to click the inline action in here. Let's expand it, that way we can see it while we're working. Employee ID, that is great to see. All the clients and projects are going to be the same because it's the same project. Date, that is good to see. Say we actually sort by date. So these will be descending as well, most recent up top. And then total time is good to see. So let's go ahead and just make this say time or hours. So we'll say display name, we'll say hours spent. Hit done. And then we don't need start time, end time. We don't need display time. We don't need group by. We don't need any of that. So now if we hit save and go in here, it's a little bit more simple in here. So we kind of only see the important data that we really care about, and that is the actual line items, what worked, the day that they were created, and that the line items are for, and the hours spent on those line items. And so, yeah, I am super thankful for you guys who've stuck around the whole hour and 40 minutes. I expect that episode 3 to happen probably in 2 weeks. And so it's been a lot of fun working on the CRM with you guys. You guys can expect sometime tomorrow inside the link of this description to see the template where you can actually copy this app for yourself or see the back end of it and how it works. That way, maybe you guys can repurpose it. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. Come out and check out the rest of our channel. We got tons of AppSheet educational content, whether that's building out full apps or if it's learning concepts like mastering expressions or learning how to connect this into AI and all that good stuff. And so appreciate you guys coming. Let's check out this one question by Senor Loco real quick, and we'll close out. And Kapil, good meeting you. Thanks for coming. Any chance AppSheet fixes the ordering problem of virtual column filters? Is there anything I can do? I would suggest going on to like creating screenshots just to show that you have done the due diligence on trying to make it work. Show that you've created a slice, that you created a view using that slice, and that you've tried to reorder the columns within the slice to make it reorder the filter columns, and screenshot that you've done those things. And then I would go into the community forums and maybe you would add it as a bug or maybe you would add it as a feature request. I think that either are probably valid categories. So I would add it, I would create a AppSheet community post. And if you're not familiar with AppSheet community, you can type in AppSheet community in Google, and you can click right here, AppSheet community forums, and you can go ahead and create yourself as a user, and you can start a conversation. And I would just say reordering filters and reordering columns inside the filter feature, native filter feature, something like that. And then just explain the issue, put in your screenshots, and if I see it from you, I'll make sure to like it. I'm crew_Camron, I believe. Crew_Cam. If you want to like tag me, say that like maybe you're on my webinar, and I'll make sure to like it and boost it and be like, yeah, we tested this out and didn't seem like something that worked, but we feel like it's something that would be great to add. And so, yeah, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you guys' attendance. I'll catch you guys later.